"Dad, why is she sitting all by herself?" 8-year-old Tommy tugged at his father's calloused, work-worn hand, his messy brown hair sticking up in all directions as he pointed toward the lone graduate. "Maybe her family just got lost in the crowd, son," Marcus whispered, though a feeling deep in his gut told him it was more complicated than that. Tommy tugged on his father's hand again, a little harder this time, his 8-year-old heart unable to ignore suffering when he saw it. "Can we go say hi to her? She looks so sad." Marcus hesitated. They were here to celebrate his friend Roberto's graduation, and he'd learned to be cautious about approaching strangers. But the woman's solitude reminded him of his own moments of loneliness, times when he'd wished someone, anyone, would notice his pain. "All right, but just to say congratulations. If she wants to be left alone, we'll respect that." Marcus placed a gentle hand on Tommy's shoulder, guiding him as they weaved through families happily snapping photos. As they got closer, the young woman's isolation became more palpable. Despite the formal cap and gown, her shoulders were slumped slightly, her gaze distant, fixed on nothing in particular. A knot of unease tightened in his stomach, worried he was intruding on a private moment. He cleared his throat, searching for a polite opening. "Excuse me." But before he could get the words out, Tommy had slipped from his grasp and taken a step forward, looking up at her with all the solemn gravity an 8-year-old could muster. "Hi, I'm Tommy," he announced, "and this is my dad, Marcus. Congratulations on graduating." He stuck out a small hand, his gaze clear and unafraid. Startled, Alexandra looked up, pulled from the depths of her thoughts. Her gaze traveled from the adorable boy with his tousled hair to the tall man with kind eyes standing behind him, who looked slightly sheepish. She glanced down at the offered hand, and after a moment's hesitation, reached out and took it. It was warm and soft in hers. "Your cap is silly," Tommy continued, his tone one of pure observation. "It looks like a square plate for books." The innocent observation struck a chord deep within Alexandra. For a brief second, she froze. Then, a clear, slightly self-conscious laugh bubbled up, shattering the heavy silence that had enveloped her. The smile transformed her face, chasing away the sadness and revealing the beautiful, radiant young woman underneath. Alexandra's laugh warmed Marcus's heart. He glanced around, noticing the other families bustling about, taking pictures while she stood alone. "Would you like me to take a picture for you, as a souvenir?" Marcus offered, his voice sincere. "A big day like this deserves to be remembered." Alexandra hesitated for a moment, but then she nodded. "Okay, thank you." Marcus pulled out his phone and stepped back to frame the shot. "All right, big smile now, champ." As Alexandra smiled for the camera, Tommy suddenly piped up, "My mom used to take pictures of us like this." The boy's words made both Marcus and Alexandra pause. Alexandra lowered her smile, her expression softening as she looked at the boy. "Oh, and where is your mom?" Tommy looked up at his dad, then back at her, his voice clear. "She's in heaven. Dad says she's a star watching over us." The pure innocence of his answer pierced Alexandra's heart. This little boy, who carried his own loss, was here comforting her. Before anyone could say another word, Tommy stepped forward and wrapped his small arms around Alexandra's neck in a warm, earnest hug. "Please don't be sad." Tommy's hug was the final touch that broke the dam. A single, hot tear traced a path down her cheek, but it wasn't a tear of self-pity. It was a tear of gratitude, because for the first time in a very long time, she didn't feel invisible. Marcus quietly placed a hand on his son's back, his own heart swelling with an indescribable emotion. He watched Alexandra gently wipe her tear away, and he knew he couldn't just walk away. "Hey," he said, breaking the silence, "to celebrate your graduation, how about the three of us go get some ice cream?" Alexandra looked from Marcus's warm eyes to Tommy's eager face. A genuine smile, free of any strain, bloomed on her lips. "Yes, I'd love that." The small ice cream shop was a riot of color, brimming with the laughter of children, a world away from the solemn atmosphere of the graduation ceremony. Tommy sat between Marcus and Alexandra, his face smeared with chocolate ice cream, his eyes shining with pure joy. "Slow down, superhero. It's not going anywhere," Marcus chuckled, dabbing his son's chin with a napkin. Alexandra smiled, watching them. The warmth between the father and son was comforting. "Looks like Tommy's a big fan of chocolate." "It was my mum's favorite flavor," Tommy piped in, his mouth still full. The boy's words cast a brief, gentle hush over the table. Marcus gave Alexandra a look of quiet understanding. He realized this must have been an emotional day for her. "So, your family couldn't make it to the ceremony?" Marcus asked gently, his tone born of genuine concern, not curiosity. Alexandra slowly stirred her vanilla ice cream. "My mum passed away a few years ago," she said, her voice steady, but her gaze distant. "And my dad, he's the CEO of a major corporation. He's always busy, always traveling." She looked up at Marcus, a sad smile touching her lips. "He sent flowers and a check. He's always believed that money can be a substitute for his presence." Marcus was silent, understanding the sentiment all too well. He wasn't wealthy, but he always made time for Tommy, knowing it was the most valuable thing he could give. "Do you live on your own?" he asked. "Yes," Alexandra nodded. "I have a custom-designed apartment, but things can still be a challenge. Sometimes just reaching a book on a high shelf, or navigating a crowded street. It's a whole process." She glanced down at her wheelchair. "It gives me freedom, but it's also a constant reminder of my limitations." Marcus listened intently, not offering empty platitudes like, "Everything will be all right." Instead, he was simply present, listening with his whole heart. He saw the young woman before him not as the daughter of a wealthy CEO, but as a strong person fighting her own battles, just like him. "I understand that feeling of limitation," Marcus said thoughtfully. "Everyone's got their own wheelchair. Some are just less visible than others." Alexandra looked up, her gaze curious. "What's yours?" Marcus let out a long sigh, one that seemed to carry the weight of his past. "I had a shot at college," he began. "But then my dad got seriously ill, and my mom was left to carry the weight of it all. As the eldest son, I dropped out and took a job at the factory to help support them." He glanced down at his own calloused hands. "It was my choice, and I don't regret it. But sometimes, I still wonder what life would have been like with a degree." He paused, placing a hand on Tommy's shoulder. The boy was now starting to doze off. His ice cream finished and continued in a softer voice. "Then I met Clara, Tommy's mum. She was the light of my life. She always believed I could do anything." His eyes took on a distant look, as if gazing back at a beautiful yet painful memory. "But we lost her when Tommy was born. Complications from childbirth. The doctors couldn't save her. It's just been the two of us ever since. I do everything for him. But sometimes late at night when he's fast asleep, the loneliness can be crushing." Alexandra listened in silence. She looked at the man before her, a single father who had sacrificed his dreams for his family, who had lost the great love of his life. Suddenly, her wheelchair, her designer apartment, and her honors degree seemed to mean very little. They sat in silence for a moment, but it was a silence filled with understanding. "We're so different," Alexandra said softly. "I have the opportunities you never did, and you have Tommy, the very thing I've always longed for, a family of my own." "True," Marcus agreed, a sad smile on his lips. "And yet, here we both are, feeling like something's missing." In that moment, they were no longer the wealthy graduate and the hard-working factory worker. They were simply two kindred spirits who had found in each other the understanding they had been searching for. From that day in the ice cream shop onward, a special friendship blossomed among the three of them. Alexandra's life was no longer confined to her quiet apartment. Every day, she found herself looking forward to Marcus's witty texts or the silly drawings Tommy would send to his Miss Alex. One Friday evening, Marcus came home after a grueling 12-hour shift, his body aching with fatigue. As he passed the factory's bulletin board, a newly posted flyer caught his eye. He stopped, squinting to read it. It was a job posting for a production line supervisor. Marcus's heart skipped a beat, then began to pound. This was the opportunity he'd been waiting for. He scanned the requirements, seeing that he met every single one. But then, as his eyes reached the final line, a mandatory associate's degree, it felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. The door to a better future had just been slammed shut in his face. Later that night, Alexandra video called him as usual. She noticed the change in his expression immediately. "What's wrong, Marcus? You look exhausted." Marcus forced a smile. "Just a long day." "No, it's more than that," Alexandra said, her tone certain. "I can tell when something's on your mind. Talk to me." Marcus was quiet for a moment before letting out a sigh heavy with disappointment. "There's a supervisor position open at the factory. A much better job, Alex. Better pay, more stable hours." "That's wonderful. You deserve that," Alexandra said, her voice bright with excitement. "But it requires a degree," Marcus cut in, his own voice laced with bitterness. "A piece of paper I don't have. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm just stuck in a rut, unable to move forward." Seeing the despair in his eyes, Alexandra felt her heart ache for him. She knew how talented and hard-working Marcus was. It was profoundly unfair that a barrier like this was holding him back. She couldn't just stand by and watch her friend give up. The next morning, instead of acting on impulse, she sat down at her computer and began her research. With her business administration degree, she analyzed the relationship between Marcus's factory and the landmark groceries supermarket chain. She identified several inefficiencies in the production process that, if improved, could save both companies a significant amount of money. She drafted a concise yet incisive proposal, outlining these gaps and suggesting a solution. The linchpin of her solution was a supervisor with deep, practical experience right from the factory floor. Only then did she use the professional email her father had set up for her and sent a meeting request to Mr. Henderson. The subject line was professional: proposal for supply chain optimization and internal talent development. In the conference room, after the initial pleasantries, Alexandra got straight to the point. "Mr. Henderson, thank you for your time. I've been reviewing the recent performance reports between the factory and Landmark. I believe we can increase efficiency by approximately 15% and reduce the defect rate to under 2%. She presented her analysis, pointing out bottlenecks in the process that only an insider would recognize. Mr. Henderson listened, his expression shifting from curiosity to intense focus. Her numbers and logic were sound. "My solution is simple," Alexandra continued. "You need a supervisor who doesn't just have textbook knowledge, but who lives and breathes the production line. You already have someone like that working for you. His name is Marcus." At this point, she laid out Marcus's experience, his dedication, and his problem-solving skills, not as an emotional plea, but as an analysis of an untapped, high-value asset. "His only issue is the lack of a degree," she concluded, "but that is a solvable problem. Investing in a key employee like Marcus with a short-term certification course will yield a much higher return on investment than hiring a fresh graduate with only theoretical knowledge." Mr. Henderson was completely convinced. This wasn't a plea for a favor. It was a smart business strategy. "Miss Sinclair," he said, his tone impressed, "that is a very sharp proposal. All right, Landmark will sponsor Mr. Marcus for a production management course. If he completes it successfully, the supervisor position is his. Consider this a pilot project based on your recommendation." Alexandra let out a quiet sigh of relief, a professional smile on her face that couldn't hide her joy. "Thank you, sir. You've made the right decision." That evening, Alexandra asked Marcus to meet her at a quiet coffee shop near his apartment. She wanted to be the one to tell him the good news in person. When Marcus arrived, he still looked worn down and dejected from the past few days. "What's up, Alex? You sounded urgent," he asked. Without a word, Alexandra simply slid an envelope across the table toward him. "Open it." Curious, Marcus opened the envelope. Inside was an official letter on Landmark Groceries letterhead. He scanned it, then read it again, more slowly, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. It was an offer for a fully sponsored production management certification course, with the promise of the supervisor position upon successful completion. He looked up, his eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and disbelief. What? What is this? I don't understand. I had a talk with their director, Alexandra explained gently. I simply showed them what I've always seen in you, someone talented, hard-working, and who absolutely deserves an opportunity. Marcus stared at the letter, then back at her. He stammered, "But why would you do that?" "Because you're my friend, Marcus. I couldn't just stand by and watch you give up," she said, her voice soft. Her words, combined with this incredible gesture, felt like a warm current flowing into Marcus's weary heart. He realized that everyone else saw him only as a factory worker, a struggling single dad. But Alexandra was different. She had looked past all of that, seeing the true value and potential that even he sometimes forgot he had. In that moment, a powerful emotion surged through him. It was profound gratitude, deep admiration, and beneath it all, something more, a love that was finally coming into focus. He stood, walked around the table, and knelt on one knee beside her wheelchair, taking her hand in his. His voice was thick with emotion. "Alex, thank you. The words don't feel like enough for what you've done. You didn't just give me a job, you gave me hope again." He looked up at her, his gaze earnest and deep. "You are the most amazing person I've ever met." Seeing Marcus's raw emotion, Alexandra felt tears well up in her own eyes. She squeezed his hand. "Me too, Marcus. I should be the one thanking you and Tommy. You two came into my life and brought me laughter, and you made me feel like I wasn't alone anymore." That decision wasn't just a promise. It was the start of a demanding new journey. Their lives fell into a new rhythm, hectic, but brimming with hope. By day, Marcus still worked his shift at the factory, but by night, he became a dedicated student. He threw himself into the management course with every ounce of his determination. On late nights, after Tommy was fast asleep, Alexandra became his tutor, his editor, and his biggest cheerleader. She patiently explained complex business terms, helped him draft his essays, and was always there to lift his spirits whenever he felt burnt out. During that process, Marcus realized he needed to go further. With Alexandra's encouragement, he decided to pursue his GED, the foundation he needed for a future college degree. Those late nights spent together at the study table, under the warm glow of a lamp, didn't just fill Marcus's head with knowledge, they wove a quiet, steady, and profound love between them. 1 year later, the small suburban house was flooded with morning Sunday. Marcus had built a gentle wheelchair ramp leading from the yard to the front door, a quiet testament to his love and care. The warm scent of pancakes drifted from the kitchen. Marcus was at the stove, wearing the Superman apron Tommy had given him. Beside him, a college economics textbook lay open. He was no longer the exhausted, hopeless factory worker from a year ago. Now, he was a respected production supervisor, a promising college student, and most importantly, the man of the house. At the dining table, Alexandra watched as Tommy scribbled away at a drawing. Her smile was radiant and serene. "All done," Tommy announced, holding up his masterpiece. The drawing showed 3 stick figures holding hands in front of a house. "This is Daddy, this is me, and this is Miss Alex." Alexandra pulled the boy into a hug, her heart overflowing with happiness. She looked up at Marcus, who was already smiling at her. "Look at us," Marcus said, his voice warm. "A year ago, I never would have dreamed of this." "We built this together, Marcus," Alexandra replied, her eyes shining. Marcus wiped his hands on his apron and walked over to her. He had aced his certification, secured the supervisor position, and now He had become the man he always wanted to be, someone who could provide a stable future for the ones he loved. He gently took her hand in his. "Alex," he began, his voice low and earnest. "A year ago, I was just a single dad living paycheck to paycheck, not daring to dream beyond the next bill. And then you walked into my life." He looked deep into her eyes. "You didn't just believe in me. You taught me how to believe in myself again." With that, Marcus slowly lowered himself to one knee beside her wheelchair. He pulled a small, worn box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver ring, with a single, sparkling stone that held the beauty of time. "This was my grandmother's ring," Marcus said, his voice trembling slightly. "She gave it to my mom, and my mom wanted me to give it to the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. That woman is you." Tears of joy began to trace paths down Alexandra's cheeks. "Alexandra Sinclair, will you marry me? Will you make our family whole?" Without a moment's hesitation, Alexandra nodded, her voice choked with happy tears. "Yes, oh yes, I will." Marcus smiled, the brightest smile she had ever seen. He gently slid the ring onto her finger. It was a perfect fit. Tommy, who had been watching in silence, finally let out a cheer. "Yay, Daddy gave Miss Alex a ring, just like in the movies. Does this mean Miss Alex is going to be my real mom now?" Marcus stood and wrapped them both in a hug. "That's right, son. We're a family now." The story closes on the image of the three of them, holding each other tightly in the sun-drenched kitchen. From a chance encounter at a graduation, a little boy's kindness connected three lonely souls. Together, they had overcome hardship, healed old wounds, and proved that a true family isn't defined by blood, but is forged in love, empathy, and unwavering support.